Hello and welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're looking at 10 of the biggest football fails of all time. 10. Willian to Spurs. The only thing better than signing a top-class player for your club is beating a rival to do it. Tottenham were in the middle of a squad overhaul in 2013 as they tussled with Real Madrid over the sale of superstar Gareth Bale. A fee was agreed, personal terms locked, and the Brazilian had even passed the medical at White Hart Lane, but at the 11th hour, Chelsea declared an interest in the player. Roman Abramovich called Anziona Suleiman Kerimov to strike a deal, and the winger quickly headed across London to undergo more tests with the Blues. Spurs were livid at seeing their marquee transfer hijacked and suggested that Jose Mourinho had only signed Willian so they couldn't have him. He went on to win 2 titles at Stamford Bridge and was named Chelsea Player of the Year 2015-16. 9. Allardyce at England. After years of complaining he'd never get his chance at a top team, unless he changed his name to Allardyce, Sam Allardyce finally got his shot in 2016. In his previous 2 jobs, he'd taken West Ham from the Championship to mid-table security in the Premier League and saved Sunderland from certain relegation. So, the FA gave him the England job and the country's most talented squad in years. Allardyce's first game in charge was an uninspiring 1-0 victory over Slovakia, but soon his dream job turned into a nightmare. The Telegraph released a video in which the England boss used his new job to get a 400k brand ambassador role and offered to advise businessmen on how to get around FA rules on third-party ownership. He also mocked his predecessor Roy Hodgson, said Gary Neville should sit down and shut up, and criticised the FA's redevelopment of Wembley Stadium. After 67 days in charge, Allardyce was relieved of his duties and replaced with under-21 boss Gareth Southgate. His was the shortest reign in England history, though his 100% win rate is second to none. 8. Steve Marley. Steve Marley's transfer to Fulham in 2001 was, for the most part, unremarkable. The Frenchman, who'd hit 12 for Lyon in the previous campaign, cost the Cottagers $11.5 million, a club record which would stand for 7 years. But he managed just 10 league goals over the following 2 seasons, and after 53 appearances for the London side, was quickly shipped back to France, where he partnered Didier Drogba at Marseille. Marley's poor form had also seen Fulham manager Jean Tigana lose his job, but the club's unconventional owner, Mohamed El Fayed, was not content to leave the matter there. He was so enraged by the failure of the Marley transfer that he decided it was a conspiracy and took Tigana to court, alleging the coach had overpaid for the striker on purpose and kept some of the fee for himself. It turned out that Tigana had briefly been Marley's agent, but he was adjudged to have done nothing wrong, and Al Fayed, who was refusing to pay the final instalment of the player's fee, was ordered to pay up. Marley himself went on to score 33 goals over the remaining 9 years of his career. That's fewer than John Terry managed in the same period. 7. De Gea to Real Madrid. At some point in the career of every superstar, they will be linked with Real Madrid, and David De Gea is no exception. The Spaniard is one of the world's best and has kept United competitive through erratic reigns of Moyes, Van Gaal and now Jose Mourinho. However, Los Blancos missed out on making the stop of their first Galactico keeper back in 2015. After a summer of rumours, it seemed like De Gea was on his way back to Madrid, where he made his name with Atletico, with Real paying $29 million and sending Keylor Navas the other way. De Gea requested to be benched, but United was stalling, only agreeing to consider the transfer on the final day of the window. In the end, the move was not completed on time, and Real released a 10-point statement explaining that United had submitted their documentation 2 minutes late, which the Red Devils denied, suggesting that their fax machine was at fault. Who uses a fax machine in this day and age? De Gea was apparently livid, but signed a new deal 2 weeks later. Since then, he's lifted the FA Cup, League Cup, Community Shield and Europa League, while Navas has won La Liga and 2 Champions Leagues. Unlucky Dave. 6. Pele's predictions. As famous for his terrible predictions as he is for his 1,300 career goals, Pele claimed that Neil Lomptey would be the best player in the world, that an African nation would become world champions before 2000, and that Argentina and France would be the finalists at the 2002 World Cup, while Brazil would exit at the group stage. Lamptey got his last cap for Ghana at the age of 21, no African country has gone beyond the World Cup quarter-finals, and Brazil won the 2002 tournament, while Argentina and France were knocked out in the first round. But arguably the worst idea to emerge from Pele's crystal ball came in the early 90s. Impressed by the 21-year-old Nick Barmby, who had recently moved to Middlesbrough for a club record $5 million, Pele declared him the English Roberto Baggio, saying he's up there with Zinedine Zidane, Paolo Maldini and Ronaldo. Those three went on to win a combined 3 World Cups, 6 Champions Leagues and 12 league titles, while Barmby won 23 England caps and retired without a single trophy to his name. 5. Andre Villas-Boas' negative spiral. Before Mauricio Pochettino came along, football pundits were able to talk about the power shift in London every season. Spurs had repeatedly threatened to finish above Arsenal, but had never achieved it during Wenger's years at the Gunners. And after missing out by a point in the 2011-12 season, they brought in former Chelsea boss Andre Villas-Boas to get the job done. Under Villas-Boas, Gareth Bale took off, scoring 21 league goals. And though Spurs lost 5-2 to Arsenal in November, they beat their rivals 2-1 in March, putting them 7 points ahead of their rivals with 10 games left to play. The Portuguese was bullish about their chances of finally cancelling St Totteringham's Day, saying, "We're on an upward spiral in terms of confidence and Arsenal are in a negative spiral in terms of results. To get out of that negative spiral is extremely difficult." Tottenham lost their next 2 games and drew another 3, while Arsenal went unbeaten for the rest of the season, winning 8 of their remaining fixtures to finish a point above the Lily-Whites yet again. Gareth Bale left for Madrid, and 9 months after his declaration, Villas-Boas was sacked. 4. Moyes and McClaren go native. British managers tend to be reluctant to go abroad, and when they do, they're normally horrific. But surprisingly, Steve McClaren bucked that trend, taking over Dutch side FC Twente in 2008, leading them to the knockout stages of the UEFA Cup for the first time in 30 years and winning the league in his second season, the first title in Twente's history. However, despite his success, the coach still managed to make himself look a tit by giving an interview with Dutch TV, during which he spoke in broken English with an exaggerated Dutch accent, apparently to make himself understood in a country where literally everyone speaks perfect English.
I sort of knew when I came here, and Champions League, Liverpool or Arsenal.
And he isn't the only one who struggled. After he was given the boot by Manchester United, David Moyes went to Real Sociedad, no doubt fancying a second home in San Sebastian. But in his first game in charge of La Real, he was filmed shouting the name Stefano from the touchline, despite Sociedad having no players with that name. His interviews also turned into a Dora the Explorer-style mashup of English and Spanish. Perhaps it's for the best that he's back in the UK. Sorry, Spain. 3. Footballers' music careers. You'd have thought it would have been enough for most footballers to play a game they love professionally, while earning millions of pounds for the privilege. But glory on the field isn't enough for some. For some reason, dozens of footballers have tried to break into the music industry over the last few years. Andy Cole released an absolute banger called Outstanding, while Ian Wright produced a track unimaginatively called Do the Right Thing. Perhaps best of all though was Clint Dempsey's second career as a rapper called Deuce. The US international released a single called Don't Tread in 2006, in which he rapped about football and America, while doing kick-ups and some incredibly offbeat head nodding. Meanwhile, former Real Madrid and soon-to-be former PSG forward Hesse has a second life as a reggaeton artist, with about equal success as he's enjoyed on the field. I suppose this is what happens when you give young men infinite money and never tell them no. 2. Displays of support. Injuries are a sad, if inevitable, part of any sport, but in recent seasons, they have given rise to a rather embarrassing trend. After Neymar was injured in the 2014 World Cup quarter-final against Colombia, his Brazilian teammates David Luiz and Julio Cesar wanted to pay tribute to their inspirational attacker and held up a shirt with his name before their semi-final against Germany, as if he'd bloody died. A better show of affection might have been to concede fewer than 7, lads. Manchester City players took it one step further, showing support for Ilkay Gundogan in 2016 by walking onto the field wearing Gundogan shirts backwards. It was his third major injury in 3 years, hardly an occasion for public grieving. Barcelona followed suit in 2017 wearing Courage Usman shirts after Dembele was ruled out for 4 months. And the phenomenon isn't restricted to health problems. When Luis Suarez was found guilty of racially abusing Patrice Evra in 2011, Liverpool players warmed up for their next game against Wigan while wearing shirts bearing Suarez's name, number and image, with the Uruguayan himself wearing one too. Hardly the appropriate response to an accusation of racism, and the soppy shirt seems like it's here to stay. 1. Alan Ball gets City relegated. A World Cup winner with England, Alan Ball had plenty of pedigree as a player, but when he became manager of Manchester City in 1995, many felt the honour was undeserved. Ball had only finished 10th with Southampton the previous season, and it was rumoured that he got the job mostly thanks to his friendship with former international teammate Francis Lee, then the owner of the Citizens. City lost 8 of their first 11 games and won 0, and after finishing 17th in the previous campaign, spent a hard year fighting relegation. Going into the final game of the season, there was one demotion spot left, and City was struggling with Ball's old club Southampton to escape the drop. City faced Liverpool at home, and though they went 2-0 down early on, Yui Rosler and Kit Simmons brought the tie level. Optimism was growing in Manchester, and Ball delighted the players further by letting them know the Saints were losing to Wimbledon, meaning the draw would be enough for the Sky Blues. Steve Lomas had dribbled the ball into the corner, wasting time until the final whistle, but disaster struck. It turned out that Southampton's match was actually goalless, a fact only discovered when Niall Quinn on the City bench went into the tunnel to check the scores. He raced back to let the gaffer know, but it was too late. City were relegated. Despite the catastrophe, Ball was allowed to keep his job, but 3 games into the following campaign, he decided the second tier was not for him and promptly resigned. It took City 4 years, including another demotion, to get back to the Premier League. So that's that, guys. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, click here for more great FD content. And as ever, don't forget to like and subscribe.